One day I kind of made some college kid angry, and he sent me a file. He social engineered me, and yeah, it totally destroyed that whole computer. So my dad came home from work. He was not happy that he needed to get more work done and the computer was destroyed. So I just remember him, you know, picking the computer up with one hand and throwing it on my bed and then saying, "That's yours. I'm gonna buy a new one. Never touch my computer again." And that's how I got my first computer.
What's up, everyone? Paramify podcast, Bryce Kunz, my homie. Have a little bit of a history. Excited for today, man. This will be sweet. Talking about InfoSec in all of its glory. And anyway, Bryce, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kenny. Really appreciate it. So enjoyed catching up with yourself and Keaton this morning. So yeah, I understand Keaton's going to be refereeing this podcast, which I appreciate because someone's got to keep me on task, right? So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep, we got our beverages right here. I'm going Mountain Dew Zero. Spark, I always do that.
Got the Red Bull, standard referee drink.
Yeah, Red Bull is kind of a rough drink. That's
what
true.
would happen if we mix these two drinks together?
Let's try it. Don't try it. The last guy who did that.
Yeah. That podcast, we couldn't even air.
His face was just so messed up. Oh. Okay. Okay, so, all right. Bryce, I've heard your backstory one time on some podcast a while ago, and I think I paid attention. It just had me there, but I'd forgotten most of it. But I know that it started, your journey, and InfoSec started in SoCal.
Yeah.
As a youth.
Yes, that is true. So
tell us.
Yeah, I was really into computers when I was a kid, right? I even when I was in elementary school. So
your dad had a computer.
Yeah, he did have a computer, and I was on it 24/7, so he could never use it, which was problematic for his work. And then, you know, one day I kind of made some college kid angry, and he sent me a file. He social engineered me. And yeah, it totally destroyed that whole computer. So my dad came home from work. He was not happy that he needed to get more work done and the computer was destroyed. So I just remember him, you know, picking the computer up with one hand and throwing it on my bed and then saying, "That's yours. I'm going to buy a new one. Never touch my computer again." And that's how I got my first computer. So I was super stoked. Ever since then, I just kept adding to the whole ecosystem. At the time, there was a lot of like computer fairs in Southern California where they'd be like, they come through once a month or once a quarter and kind of have a bunch of computer parts. So I'd go down there with my dad on Saturdays and just try to haggle or scavenge to like get a new video card or whatever. Got to get, you know, way better frame rates when you're playing Counter-Strike, right?
Yes.
Yes. Man, I suck at that game, man. I'm so bad.
Yeah, I'm that now. I was okay in high school. I was actually in a competitive Quake clan for a little bit in high school. Yeah.
Which clan?
I can't say the name because it's not politically correct anymore. But at the time, it was amazing, and we didn't have the best track record, but we had a lot of fun. So
right.
So yeah, I played the engineer class, right? It was like Team Fortress on top of Quake, right?
The only game that I could really get into that really just still has me to this day, and it's a little embarrassing, but is Battlefront 2.
Oh, that is a good game.
It is a good.
That is a good game, man.
It got a lot of hate because,
why?
You know, at the very beginning, because they did the pay. You know, I don't know.
Oh, right? Yeah, because people don't like horse armor.
No,
you know, they don't want to pay for horse armor, and now they're on their phones. They're microtransacting every minute. They're on Farmville. They're like, yeah, I need more whatevers. You're like, how else are my vegetables gonna grow? You're like, I gotta get back in there. That game needs me.
Yeah. So anyways, like, so my whole method, so internet at my house really sucks. And we always, it's so bad. And so what I have to do to peel myself away is I have to delete Battlefront 2.
Yes.
Because it's going to take a whole night to install. But every now and again, like if we, you know, I set some little goals, you know, with Angie, like if I'm like nice to the kids for like 3 days in a row.
So you're still in this state where you're like already limiting yourself on video games.
Yes. Totally. So, but I will say, like the other day, I just had to delete it actually on Saturday. But dude, I schooled all of those little 6-year-olds, man. Oh my gosh, I did so good. I think I had, like on that match, I had like 190 kills. And then the next best person was also on my team, had like 140. And then on the other side, they sucked, man.
That's the best. That's the best.
So yeah, I don't think I'm super skilled, but I just know the places, the spawn points, and so I usually go get a tank.
Well, if you know the map, you can. That goes a long ways. I feel like.
If you know the map.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really get dedicated time at home to play video games, or maybe the better way to say it is I allocate that to other projects. But airplanes, like you get a portable, like a Steam Deck or something like that. You get on the airplane and you can just zone out because. The internet connectivity on some of the flights is like good, but on other flights it's like it's not even worth trying, right? It's just like cuts in and out the whole time. And yeah, I'm currently working on Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Oh, nice.
Only on flights.
Only on flights. Yeah.
Bryce, I do have to ask real quick.
Yeah.
And did you get into buying CSGO skins, or like this is original Counter-Strike, right? That you would play.
Yeah.
Did they have skins?
Well, they did, but I don't think they had like a whole like ecosystem where you could buy them. And I feel like the main purpose for skins was to cheat, right? Because you could apply skins, right, that I feel like may give you a tactical advantage on the map, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, I may or may not had some special capabilities that, you know, in case I needed to rage quit the game, would cause everybody to quit out. And then I got about 30 seconds before the server figured it out, and I'd go around and frag everybody, and that made me feel great.
That's awesome.
You gotta be careful when you're processing those skins. You know, there could be slight bug in there.
Okay, so okay. Anyways. That's a nice side quest, right? So you were into computers a lot, right? Yeah. And then you found that, I've got some skills. So you didn't go into like building stuff. You're like, I could just like break a lot of stuff. So you start off and you break your dad's computer, and you found a huge advantage there because, oh, dude, I broke something. I get free stuff. Yeah. And so then you go.
That definitely probably was not setting me up for the best reward structure in life. I don't know if you're reading a parenting book today, if they would say that was the way but I think, net effect was positive, right? Like he got his own computer. I stayed away from that. I spent a lot of time on the computer, built up my skills. Just to be transparent, I really, as a kid, was not super future focused, right? Like I was just living in the moment for the most part. I never really even thought that there was even going to be careers, like cybersecurity would be an industry and that I would be in it and that I'd be helping people secure their systems. It was mostly like video games, pranks, right? And just trying to figure out how stuff, like that curiosity drive, like how does this work under the hood, right? Or if I do these tweaks, what can I get the operating system to do and things like that. So wasn't really until I got to grad school that I realized, like, oh wow, like this is becoming a thing, right? Like there is an industry forming here, and yeah, it's been awesome to see it evolve over the years. So
yeah, so you went into grad school, so that's kind of future focused. I mean, you at least were.
Oh, not at all. So let me right? So like I went to college, don't revoke my accreditation ever, but I didn't even really fill out the application. My mom did for college. She forged my signature on it, and she submitted it, and then I got accepted. She's like, you're going. So I went off to college, and I took virtually no generals, and I didn't even know what a minor was. So I just signed up for all the computer classes, right? I just wanted to take all the computer classes. So by, I'd say, mid of the junior year, I'd completed and like aced all the computer classes, right? And then my counselor was like, you know, you got to do generals and get a minor to graduate. I was like, oh, dude, that's like, anyways, I did not want to do that. So I just asked him, I was like, how do I get out of here the fastest? Can you do can you dig in a little and just figure out what minor is going to get me out of here the fastest? And he came back. He's like, all right, I did some research. He's like, I'm just telling you right now, I do not recommend you do this. He's like, because this is the hardest like degree at our university. He's like, but technically, he's like, you could get a minor in accounting and get out of here for the fastest, right? I was like, done. I'm doing it, right? He's like, I really don't think you should do it. He's like, it's super hard. So I was one class away from double major with that accounting thing. I just cranked through that in the last year and a half. And yeah, I think that was good. The only part that really kind of bummed me out is like my brother-in-law is a CFO. And when I got to the end, you know, I asked him, I was like, yeah, man, you know, the professors, they think I should go into being, you know, accounting and do another year so I can get like CPA status. But, you know, I'm into computers, so I don't think I'm going to do it. He's like, yeah, he's like, to be honest, he's like, you're not going to really do any of that work by hand ever again. You're just going to input all the financial data into software and it's going to calculate all that stuff for you. I'll be like, what did I do for the last 2 years? I was like, we could have just done it with a program. I was like, what? And when he said that, it was like, no, dude, computers is the way, right? I got to go there. So I guess the big thing was I didn't really realize I was graduating as quickly as I did. I was just trying to crank stuff out as fast as possible. And then when I got to the end, he's like, you know, my counselor's like, okay, so where have you been interning? What jobs have you been interviewing? And I was like, I have not done anything, man. I was like, I've done 0.0. And he was like, all right, but you know, like, you got 2 more months, right? Like, you got to do something. And I was like, well, what do you think? He's like, we could go to grad school. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I was like, you think I could get in? He was like, yeah. He was like, I could call a guy. He's like, I'd probably get you on the short list or whatever. So that's why I ended up going to grad school mostly because I didn't really know what I was doing, right? And I was like, well, another 2 years. Hopefully I'll have it figured out by then.
I feel like I picked my career because I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay, yeah, tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was going through the motions at school. What do I need to do? All of a sudden I was married. I had a kid, and I'm like, okay, well, I really like computers now, but I kind of stumbled onto it later because for same, like I was like living in the moment, living in SoCal. How can I go surfing a lot and just like chill and just put my life on autopilot and live by the beach and just, you know, and so I liked history a lot. I liked reading a lot, you know, but in terms of actually doing school is just hard for me. You know, it's just like so hard for me to pay attention. And so sometimes I would take a test and I could do well. But someone said, oh, you're really good with people. You should look into professional services. And so I took a job at PwC.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't know, like my first day, I'm like, dang, what did I sign up for? Because I didn't really understand what we were doing. And here I am. I'm still in that industry, kind of doing that same exact thing. But the thing that changed for me was, hey, this sucks really bad. I hate this. I hate this like so much. And Angie would ask me like, well, what do you hate about it? I'm like, I don't know. It just generally hurts.
I just like deep down in my soul, I can feel the hurt.
Yeah. It just, but that was interesting because I started to focus on, what can I do to make it a little suck less? What can I do to make it better? And if it sucks for me, you know that it sucks for everyone else. There's no one else because like, oh, good. Let's do an audit. This is going to be fun, right? Or let's do compliance or let's do whatever it is. And I started to focus in on solving those problems and using the skills that I did have to make it better. And had little successes, little micro successes along the way, and started to enjoy my career, actually, you know, doing that. So kind of similar to you, I found myself in a great career, but it wasn't because I did any like real like planning or anything. It's just I kind of found myself in a place and I was stuck. I was in a place I didn't want to be, so I was stuck, right? And so how do you get out of there, right? So
yeah, I think a lot of life is like, using an analogy, is kind of like you're trying to make the most of the cards you have in your hand, right? Like if you're playing poker, or like another analogy, like, you know, a lot of times I feel like life is kind of like roulette, right? Like you lay down some chips on some numbers. You're like, I feel like these are going to work out well for me. Yep. And then it starts spinning, right? And then it's hands off. It's like, all right, I made some bets. Let's see where I land, right? Yep. So, and, you know, I think generally speaking, you know, when you like lean into the future, right? You know, that's going to be a better bet. But, you know, you never know, right? It could have easily gone the other way. And even just to think about your career there at PwC, right? It's like if you would have just done one little thing differently and been like, you know, 1 degree different, right? Then the trajectory over time could have took you to a whole different place.
Completely.
And we wouldn't be here this podcast, you know? And like I'd be sad. I wouldn't even know why I'm sad.
Me neither. I know it'd be eating at me. Yeah. It's phenomenal. I like how you laid that out, kind of thinking in bets. There's this book by someone called Annie Duke in her her book is called Thinking in Bets, and it starts out amazing. She says she's talking about the Super Bowl where, you know, it's Seattle Seahawks versus the Patriots, and they're on the goal line, and Marshawn, you know, Marshawn couldn't be stopped, and essentially and then Russell Wilson throws the goal line pass and it gets intercepted, and everybody's like, you're such an idiot, Pete Carroll. Like, oh my gosh, that is the absolute worst thing you could have done. But when you looked at the numbers, it was just like an unlucky outcome, because there really weren't that many successful interceptions at the goal line. Someone just made a crazy good play. It was just really a fluke. And so, you know, sometimes things happen, you know, based on, you know, the decisions you make. But over time, it's better to think in bets. Where are we going to be most successful? So on that, so Bryce, cyber is an area where today it's a booming industry. You can make a lot of money in cyber. You don't even have to be good. You know who you are. Right? You can make a lot of money. Right. So most people, you know, that are in cyber that have the skill set that you do, they don't often choose to start their own security company because of all the challenges. Yeah. So why did you choose to start your own thing? It couldn't have been money. I don't think so. Maybe it was, but I don't know.
You know, after going to grad school, successfully getting an MBA, right? So that I fully understand how poor my life decisions are. I just decided, screw it. It's bucket list, man. Like, I'm not, you know, you only get one life, right? And you can't take the money with you, right? Even like the Jeff Bezos or like the Elon Musk of the world, we're all going to end up in the dirt, right? So might as well make the most of it while we're here. And I judge success, you know, money is an enabler. It enables me to do more things that I want to do, right? 100%, right? Yeah. So I need to keep growing the money to do more stuff that I want to do, right? But the gauge of success is not the money, right? The gauge of success is, honestly, how do I feel that my impact on this world is going to be? You know, like, am I making the world a better place? Am I waking up every morning and helping people? Like, am I helping people be happier? Am I helping people sleep better at night? Am I helping people, like, by giving, you know, people out of college job opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have? And can I help people, you know, kind of get in good spots with their families, or, you know, kind of grow their own personal lives? And that's kind of like the mark of success for me, is how much good am I kind of doing in the world, right? And right, obviously money is going to help me do more of that, right? And obviously you got to make money to keep in business and keep growing.
Sure.
but ultimately I don't really care, right? Like if I die and I have $1 to my name, but I helped like a ton of people, then that's awesome, right? But I just see right now, like, money's going to help me help more people, right? So it's kind of part of the overall strategy, but I totally, you know, can't take it with you, right? And so might as well invest it, even if some of those investments are more or less risky. And I think a lot of people would say, you know, starting your own company is risky, right? I was looking at an article from Harvard Business Review the other day, actually on the flight back this weekend, and, you know, it's saying that 75% of startups fail, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other ones that they're defining as success either get an exit or get an IPO. And I know a lot of friends that started things and took money from different investors that exits aren't always a win, right? So they're putting 25%, they're putting some percentage in that 25% bucket where I wouldn't really define it as a win, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they get a little bit of money, but the investors are savvy. They know how to get their money back, right? That's right. So and they should, right? They're assuming most of the risk, right? Yeah. But on the flip side, you know, you're also putting your life into it as kind of like the founder, right? Yeah. And so really, I just saw an opportunity to be able to help more people. So that's why I started Stage 2 Security, right? And honestly, I thought it was going to be a small pen testing shop. Like we're going to be, I told the initial guys that came on board, like we're going to be like a 5-person pen testing shop. It's going to be great. We're just going to have a ton of fun and we're going to hack stuff. And before like 1 year was over, we had like over 20 employees. Whoa. Right. And we just like kept growing. Right. And I don't know, honestly, to be transparent, if I was, even though I had an MBA and it was what I wanted to do and I wanted to help people, I don't know if like I was like prepared for it at all, right? And so I definitely didn't make like all the perfect decisions, but overall I just tried to come back to the founding principle, which is, you know, am I helping people? Like, am I helping the clients? Am I helping the team? And if so, then I'm going to call it a win, even if, you know, there's not much money in the bank today, right? So
whoa. Man, I got chills a couple times, honestly, Bryce. That's real. I had never heard that from you, but that's awesome. Way to go. Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't share it a lot. And I'm really hoping that heart-moving speech will get me some points from people.
Yeah, it will.
That's at least 3 to 4 points.
3 to 4 points?
That's solid. That's
like, I bare my heart and soul, and I got 3 to 4 points. So
we have 0. Okay.
Oh, okay, that's true.
So
that's true.
That's pretty
Kenny should get some points too, though, because he did a good job with like the whole like backstory, PwC.
Ooh, you're right.
So yeah, okay, yeah. All right. I appreciate you hooking him up.
Yeah. Okay, man. So you mentioned, and even if there's not a lot of money in the account, so there's a ton of challenges with going and doing this, setting off on your mission to help people and to give people experience in cyber. So what are recount some of those like real big challenges with like starting the business, you know?
Yeah. And
maybe if you continue to have them, what are some of those?
Yeah. I think I ran into a lot of challenges, and I'm sure these aren't like super unique, but it takes a lot of capital to grow, right? I don't think a lot of people realize when you grow at the rate that we were growing and you have no VC funding, you're doing this all bootstrapped, right? So I was. So, I mean, it just takes a lot of money. Like even, you know, let's say you have a consultant and they do 30 days of work, and then maybe you have like net 60 terms, right? You're looking at 90 days before the first payment comes back around, right? And you have to be floating payroll and benefits and all the rest of the stuff for that, which is okay if you're growing at a slow pace. But, you know, we were not growing at a slow pace. We were rapidly growing. So there's definitely one time where we got in a jam. Like I had never missed, it was about 1.5 years in, and I had never missed payroll once, right? Never been late on the payroll, never missed it. I knew that people were depending on it. Like they have mortgages they got to pay, they got families they got to feed. And I told them if they came on board that I would take care of them, right? But I just remember looking at the bank account once and being like, I'm $80K short, right? And I got 2 days. I got 48 hours, and I got to come up with $80K. I'd already put all the money that I had in, right? And banks, because we're only like a year and a half in, banks aren't really going to lend you money, right? They won't give you a line of credit. They're like, it's too new, right? You need at least 2 years of financials before they even give you the time of day.
But you're a year and a half in.
Yeah.
So and I have 2 years.
Yeah. And I needed to come up with $80K, right? In 48 hours, right? So, you know, I went to some of the founders on the team and I just explained the situation. I was like, hey man, like, we're not gonna, we're not gonna hit payroll, man. Like, there's no way. And one of the guys on the team was, you know, he's like, hey, what about like this thing? I bet we could sell that to this client and I bet we could make more than 80K. And I was like, you think we do that in 48 hours? And he was like, it's worth a shot. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I went out there and I hit the road and, 24 hours later, we made over $100,000. We hit payroll and we never looked back. So, I mean, I'm eternally grateful for everything that, for one, just people trusting me and coming on board. And two, like all the sacrifices that people made. Cause I know other people make sacrifices too to build the company. It's not just me. And I honestly, you know, especially a lot of the people came on early on, like the company would not be where it is today without them. So
yeah, that's awesome, Bryce. Dang. So hugely successful, never looked back. You merged with other awesome companies. And so now you're UltraViolet, right? So
yes.
So yeah. So why do customers choose UltraViolet? You got a lot of competition. So why do they tend to go with you?
Yeah. So I think people like UltraViolet for a couple of reasons. One is we still have a really strong culture, and our culture is very much on we want to be the best from a technical perspective, right? And we also want to stay focused on our clients' concerns and interests, right? So if you come to us and you see our solution and you're like, hey, that's cool, but that's not really the way we operate here. Like, we like to do it a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. We're not like the other vendors where we're like, oh, okay, I guess you're not going to work out because we have this, you know, square peg, round hole type solution. We're like, yeah, that's no problem, right? Like, we'll get some of our dedicated defense engineers. They're going to come down. They're going to help tailor either the solution or your systems to help get this integrated. And then we've tried really hard, especially on the offensive side, to be an extension of the existing company's team, right? So we open up real-time communication with us. So, I mean, if you bought a pen test with us 9 months ago, you could still today just jump back in the channel, ask us any questions that you want about it, say like, hey, I need like a retest, or, you know, things that are beyond the scope of the original statement of work. As long as they're like, you know, reasonable, we're totally happy to help, right? UltraViolet is 100% cybersecurity. If it's not cybersecurity, we don't want to be in that line of business. And the people that come to our company and stay to our company are people that they want to be with, they want to be with a peer group, right? That's also pushing themselves. We've recently implemented a upskilling program where individuals can go into a portal, deploy a custom lab environment, and if they complete challenges, they can earn a badge, and then everybody can see everybody else's badges, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, rapidly this becomes, a thing about,
accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah. Gamification.
Yes.
Making it awesome.
While also being fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Fun, right.
Yeah.
And it's your mission, right? So tying people to a mission is really impactful. You get people that care, they have skin in the game. That's awesome. So Bryce, you mentioned something in there. You said like, well, 9 months later, they can hop back into the channel. You're going to continuously help them. So this is actually important because we're moving away slowly, probably too slow, in my opinion, from this point in time check, which is almost useless, right? Because the way that things change. So now there's this continuous threat exposure management.
Yeah.
That is really coming into the fray. So I know that that's something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I'm talking a little bit about it. So what's changing now?
Yeah, so point-in-time pen tests are great to meet the bare minimum, right?
To get a sticker, to get compliance.
Yeah, exactly. So that, when the auditors come through, everything looks cool, right? But a lot of the realities is the moment that the pen test is over, engineer spins up a database, puts a weak password on it, and makes it internet facing, and you have a breach, right? Mm-hmm. And no one knows until the attacker emails you and asks for a ransom, right? No one knows.
Serious stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think we've all seen with recent breaches in, the Vegas area, right? That's not a situation any of us want to be in, right? You got to make some really hard calls. So what we do is we say, okay, I get it. You got to have your compliance, and we want to help you have your compliance. And you're probably already using us for your pen test, right? And your compliance to meet those requirements. But let's just let us keep testing your systems afterwards, right? Like, we're going to look at your full exposure, whether it's internal, whether it's external. We can even throw in social engineering, which is a little more advanced than the other, phishing solutions out there. For multiple reasons. I know the rumor is, that MGM hack happened because someone called up the IT help desk and got them to reset the MFA, right? That's something that our employees love doing, right? They absolutely love social engineering,
yes,
right? So let us find those critical and high vulnerability points, whether they're human or whether they're technology, and let's do that continuously as your systems change. And then we can help you, right? Greatly reduce the chance of being breached, right? And another thing is it drives me nuts. It drives me crazy. I've been so that you understand my background, right? I used to run the SOC at Homeland Security, right, for their unclassified network. And I was over incident response and focus operations, which is kind of like their advanced hunt function, where they're hunting down APTs and strategically removing them from the network. And it just drives me crazy because even my first day on that job, I logged into the SIM that they had at the time, and there's just an overwhelming number of notables, of things for people to follow up with. And we had a SOC that was 24/7. It had over 50 analysts. Then we had another engineering team on top of that. And this is back in the day, right? And there's still no way that they could triage all those, right? There's zero chance. And so the first thing I told them is, I said, hey man, if it's not a high or critical, right? If we're not really going to get breached, then don't focus your time on it, right? Because that's the stuff that the CISOs got to go to Congress and report on, is when we get breached, right? And we want to stop that stuff as soon as possible. And so we re-engineered our processes, we re-engineered our workflows, and now skip forward, it's virtually, 20 years later, and I see organizations have the exact same problem. I go to organizations all the time, and their security teams are inundated with notables and security alerts. And they're like, well, we got to follow up with this because whatever. And it drives me crazy. So the one thing that we're trying to do with our continuous exposure management solution is we want to take some of that off our individual's plate. And we want to use some of our advanced technologies that we've built out, which I hate to use buzzwords, but kind of use AI and ML to prioritize the things that, you should be looked at. So let's say, you have a CSPM tool, and let's say you have a vulnerability scanning tool. Instead of just letting all those findings sit there and not do anything, send them into our system, right? People send them into our system, then our system prioritizes them, right? It has a bunch of automations to help vet things and close out false positives automatically. And then it goes over to our team of experts, right? Which are very acquainted with breaching systems. And they quickly sort out which of these do you actually need to fix.
You need to fix right now.
Yeah. And which of these can you just let go?
Yeah,
right?
Just let them go.
Yeah. So I feel like we're helping a lot of clients today, 10x or more their productivity, right? Because they're able to focus on the things that actually matter, right?
Tell me a little bit more about how AI and ML work together to enhance red teaming. So tell me a little more about that.
So yeah, luckily we've been really well pre-positioned here. Whenever we've done engagements, we've used very structured routines, like infrastructure as code. And we've been collecting telemetry on all of our red teaming engagements, right? Mostly so that, you know, we could help automate things, right, in our microservice-based platform that we kind of use for that continuous exposure management. But and also just so that we could kind of get some key metrics and improve operations. But now that we have all this data sitting in a data lake, and we have new features out there, like we have, you know, LangChain that's able to build kind of your custom agents, that's able to go through and kind of parse out the data. Now we can start to take common questions, right, that a red teamer might ask, and then have the AI solution, right, do a lot of the legwork, right?
That makes sense.
And one thing that we really like to do,
5 points for that. Okay, yeah,
5.
Thanks, Kenny.
Oh yeah.
I'll go with 4.5.
Okay, 4.5. I'll take it. I'll take a 4.5.
Okay. All right.
But one thing we really like to do is we like to steelman the case for something and steelman the case against something. So we use the data that's already in the data lake, which is like your common pen test data, your scan data, your vulnerability data, operating system data. And then we like to say, you know, one, tell me as an attacker from your AI standpoint, right, how you would breach into this, right? And then, you know, tell me as from a defender how that would be detected, right? And then also say, like, steelman the case that this specific thing is actually exploitable, and then steelman the case against it being exploitable. And then all that data is already available when our red teamer logs in, right? And he could quickly review it and say, like, oh, I've seen this before, right? It kind of falls in this category, or no, that's, you know, this is new. I need to do more digging into this. And then that data on the way he responds to that kind of notable gets fed back into the engine. And so the system gets smarter. The next time it sees something similar, it's like, oh, red teamers, you know, the last 5 times all did the same thing, right? But using the data that we've already collected in the data lake and some of our advanced like red teaming tools. So I, you know, and I'm really excited about it. Like we're leaning all in on it. Anywhere that we can leverage, you know, the latest technology, right, is gonna help us hopefully prevent a breach before that happens to our clients, right? So the attackers, they're not sitting around not doing anything. Yeah, they're seeing the, you know, the ChatGPT revolution as well, right? Yeah. And they're leaning in, right? So as red teamers, we got to be one step ahead of them. And I mean, our red team, we do a lot of things that that aren't, you know, they're not secrets, right? But we don't see ransomware groups doing yet, right? We don't see cyber criminals or even sometimes nation states doing yet. But typically the lifestyle is about 24 months. We start doing something and then 24 months later, doing it's everywhere, right? Yeah. And everybody, the attackers have figured it out, oh man, this is effective, right? But the clients that we already have on our platform that we're continually testing, they already know about it. They've been able to get it into the roadmap and they've been able to get it fixed, right? Yeah. So I think that's part of the real value added there is just, you know, as we lean in on the innovation, our clients can take advantage of that as well.
Well, it sounds like you have an amazing client base because they're it sounds like they're into this progressive approach, which you need to be progressive in cyber.
Yeah.
You need to be continuously changing and updating how you're doing it versus, you know, those who don't care, who just want some sort of sticker outcome compliance. So I don't know, like I assume that those aren't the clients that you're getting. They just want a sticker. Right?
We don't do so well in the I just want the check boxed, like the box checked type client. Like honestly, we don't win a lot of those deals. But what happens is typically, not to be mean, but typically those orgs have some type of security incident. The new management gets hired. New management rolls in and says, we got to actually start doing cybersecurity here, guys. Yeah. Right? And then there you're like, all right, we're going to pull UltraViolet in, right? We're going to pull Bryce's crew in. Yeah. And we're going to get ground truth. Like you say that SOC will detect this. Let's see. Let's see. You know? And the thing is, I try to reemphasize with all the clients, like we're collaborative by default, right? If you want us to be like black box sneaky, sure, we can do that. But by default, we want to be collaborative with your organization. We want to have trusted agents in there that know what we're doing. And most of all, we want to make sure you guys actually make the changes, because the only way that we're going to be able to continue to innovate is if organizations continue to challenge us. And if organizations don't fix their stuff, it's not going to challenge us. We'll just keep doing the same stuff over and over, right? Yeah. So from my standpoint, it's a win-win when organizations make meaningful change, right? When they really focus on those highs and criticals, they weed them out of their organization, and they significantly reduce their overall risk, right? Yeah. And then I know you guys at Paramify, you guys are really, you're really helping, you're trying to help, or you guys are helping clients reduce their risk as well, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys are taking a lot of, the one thing that I really like about the Paramify platform, right, is just how much it reduces your load when you're doing documentation. I'm going to tell you all a secret right now. I don't want to leave the room. Okay, it's okay to leave.
It might.
Okay, all right. So originally when I was like cutting in grad school, I was going to get an internship, and I had an awesome internship lined up in the intelligence community. I mean, it was like super cool, right? And they were only going to pick 2 people for it, and I was one of the 2 people, right? Unfortunately, as part of my background investigation, people found out that, you know, I kind of operate in the gray area at times, right? Nothing bad, right? Nothing like evil, right? But, you know, I wasn't thinking about the future. Like I said before, I was just kind of living in the moment more. Mm-hmm. And you know, I was doing stuff that was fun, right? And so, you know, at the last minute, they said, sorry, you need to take a couple years, you know, kind of get more in line with the clearance processes, and then, you know, come back, right? So so I was scrambling to get an internship, right? And my buddy was like, oh, I work at this large government organization, right? And he was like, we don't have anybody that really knows cybersecurity, and we got a lot of cybersecurity work. So he's like, why don't you guys just come do an internship for us? And I was like, okay, sweet, whatever. I'll come do the internship, right? Fine. So the first day I show up, and I kid you not, I don't even know what I'm doing on this internship, right? I get my badge. They take me in a small windowless room. Well, actually, that's not true. It had a window, but because they had retrofitted the building, and the window faced the bricks, they built another building. And so you can open the window and touch the bricks on the other side. Nice. Oh, man. And then they're like, okay, we're going to bring in some security documentation, and we just want you to review it. And that's the internship. And I was like, okay, cool. You know, I have no money, right? I'm just grateful I have an internship at all, right? After the whole other thing blew up, I thought I was sitting around doing nothing that summer.
Major PTSD right now, man. Just to review all the security documentation.
Oh my gosh.
No joke. What are those things called that move refrigerators?
Forklift?
Forklift?
Yeah.
Next thing I know, they wheel in a forklift. It's filled to the top with documentation, printed documentation. And they put it in the corner. And I'm like, okay, so you just want me to go through that? And they're like, no, that's just the first load. And then they proceed to bring in 5 more loads of this. And so there's like 6 stacks of this documentation that's taller than me. And they want me to read all the documentation and then summarize in a 1-page letter whether they should approve the system, like, you know, an ATO, like approve it to operate or not.
Yeah.
And that's what I did the entire summer, was read documentation and write 1-page summaries on it. And it was mind-boggling. So,
and I wish that's changed, but it really hasn't.
I wish it had to.
Well, everything that talks to NIPRNet has the ATO.
Yeah.
Literally everything. And so when I was talking to my friend who's, he's part of the one of the APT teams for Air Force, right? He was like saying, man, a lot of stuff we just do on our own computer, right? And we'd like to have a server, but we just don't do that because we know we have to go through ATO. If we just, you know, but there's got to be, that's exactly where we're focused. There's got to be a way to make that process way easier.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it, and there is. And so
Yeah. And so I appreciate you guys at Paramify tackling that problem. So that hopefully future Bryce out there doesn't have to spend his internship reviewing all that documentation. And, you know, overall, like, I get the core essence of what they're going for and the importance of it. Yeah. And it's important to know your information systems. It's important to know your major applications. It's, you know, your general support systems. You do need to know them, right? You know, but I feel like there's been a lot of attempts to make this process better, but they've been so hard to swallow, right? Like, I'm not going to name the current thing, but it's so difficult, man. Even me as a cybersecurity expert that's been doing this since I was like in elementary school, like, it's just, I mean, even when I take the documentation, feed it to ChatGPT and have it try to summarize it, it's too much, man. Like, we gotta simplify, right? And we gotta focus, right? So yeah, that's one of the things I learned early on in my career, right? Is if you can simplify the operations, if you can focus, right, less is definitely more. So you cannot defend a network, right, that just is, you know, like an endless sprawling spider web of interconnections, right? It's really hard to defend that network. But, you know, if you focus, you route your traffic through specific policy enforcement points, you focus on the endpoint, what's important there, and then you focus on making your documentation of those systems meaningful and not wasting your time on, you know, writing millions of pages of documents, right? That some intern's going to go read and that's it, right? And summarize back into a one-pager. And then it's not true. Like, as soon as you document everything like that, you know, the only thing that's true is the date that you reviewed it. Because a lot of things have changed. Not everything. Yeah. There's a lot of evolution, like you said, as once you do the pen test, as soon as you've done that, someone's going to spin up an internet-facing database that, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's whatever the breach is. So what's good is today we do have mechanisms that can help make that a lot better. So that's what we're focused on taking advantage of. Okay. All right, Bryce. Okay. Couple questions, man. Yeah, go. Couple questions. Shoot, I'm dying to earn some more points. Okay, yeah. I have to say, that was like 5 points. Oh! We need a scoreboard up in here, man. Okay. Just factor it in. Next time I come, I'll factor it. We'll have like a little count. You know, like, all right. Yeah, you know, okay, like a basketball scoreboard. You know. All right, dude. It's time. It's time for you to tee off. Okay. Okay. Some of your favorite security fails that you can talk about. Oh, well, okay. I'm just going to talk about things that are public, right? Because I feel like that's the safest. Okay. But I think, okay, not the current Vegas hacks, right? But if we're calling back, if you go, I think it's like 2017-ish, a casino got totally hacked. From a fish tank? Fish tank. Yes, exactly. That's fish tank. And I'm not going to say anything, but a lot of our clients have something very similar where they're just like, have some random remote site and you can jump a fence or you can walk over it and you jack in and you're on layers deep in the network. You know, you're past all those policy enforcement points and you're to the good stuff, right? It's like that M&M. You're already you're past that hard shell and you're in the good stuff in the middle, the chocolate. Yeah. So I think that just got to go down as like hilarious fail number one. The fish tank. The fish tank, right? Remember that, yeah. Yeah. What about overreactions to things that were ultimately not that important? Dude, there's so many overreactions in industry, or like so many times companies issue statements and the statements are either too vague, and which infuriates the public, right? Or like, in my opinion, sometimes too specific to the point where they're tipping their hand to the attacker, right? Like, you don't want the attacker to really know what your current status is on the incident response process, or you probably don't even really want them to know that you pulled in an outside firm, right? And there's some good examples. They're not public yet. Yeah. So you really want to tread lightly, because if the attackers find out who's doing incident response on your behalf, they could also become a target, right? We have seen security firms get breached, right, by many attacking groups over the years. And I think it's a folly to say that like any organization is so perfect that it's not going to befall a breach. I mean, at the core of it, I mean, you've got like the Snowdens of the world that are going to jam stuff on, you know, drives and walk out of your org with it, right? And then, you know, it honestly doesn't take that much. If you're trying to be on the, you know, if you're trying to be competitive in the commercial market, right, you're going to assume some risk as part of your operation, which is going to usually enable the attackers to have a leg up. And I really want to, the one thing that I really feel like or is a fallacy is everybody looks at everybody else and they think the grass is greener, right? So like if you're in tech and you're like, oh, if I went over to, you know, the financial companies, then, you know, they wouldn't be dealing with any of this nonsense because their systems are locked down, right? And that the reality is, yeah, maybe you're not dealing with that specific nonsense, but you'll be dealing with a totally different nonsense, which is also still vitally important to the organization, right? Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of crypto exchanges and a lot of financial institutions targeted by attackers because it makes a lot of financial sense, right? Like if you can, you know, breach a organization, there's a lot of funds moving through it each day, right? I mean, you can buy a lot of O-days for that amount of money that you're stealing, right? So, and I think another thing that I just got to say on the O-day topic is people are so naive. Like, so naive, right? They're like, oh, O-days, that's like magic sauce that like only like government hackers are going to get access to, right? No, man, anybody who's got enough money can get their hands on a bunch of O-days, right? And whether that's, you know, whether that's a group like a LulzSec type group or whatnot, or a Lapis type group where they go and they work their way up the ecosystem, right? They'll go and they'll breach a company and they'll say, hey, give me this ransom or I'm going public. And the company will pay them. And then they'll breach another company. And they're happy to take that cryptocurrency off their hands, which enables them to get more access, right? Yeah. So it's a tough world. And, you know, people are like, well, I can't do anything about the 0-day threat, so I should just ignore it and do nothing, right? Like that's the implied part of the conversation. But the reality is the way that you combat the O-day threat is you do the tried and true. You do the defense in depth, right? You don't just assume, like you assume that any workstation that can talk out to the internet, like let's just think about this concept for a minute, right? You open your web browser. What does your web browser do? It runs code that it pulls from the internet, right? Fundamentally, it takes untrusted code and it runs it on your computer to give you that nice interactive session. If there's a and they're always pushing new features because people always want a better experience. Yeah. So if an attacker figures out a way to exploit that endpoint, either through the browser or a number of other mechanisms, right? You've got to assume that something's going to get breached. And then the question is, when a system gets breached, what other countermeasures do you have in place? And I do feel like that's one area that I like about the certification approaches is they make you step back and look at your overall architectures more. Right. And I just wish that there was more industry certifications, right, that like verified that you've implemented that and that you've implemented that on more like a continuous like type system, right? Because maybe you have a third-party auditor come in and he says, yeah, the design, the architecture looks good. But, you know, the reality is I've been on so many engagements where the architecture looks great. The implementation had like one fatal flaw, right? It was like, yeah, the day out the auditors left, we needed to debug a networking issue. So we just, you know, threw up a server, put a couple NICs in it, and now it's connected to both segments of it, the network or whatever, right? And that server gets popped and all your security controls are like invalidated.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you got in.
Yeah.
So you have all these layers that you need to implement. It's so difficult. I think one of the challenges, like the way that you're explaining how to handle it is so pragmatic versus sometimes what we hear from the security community, which is alarmist. And I think that tends to turn people off from security, and they just go, oh, like, yeah, those people are crazy, right? Even if they are correct, right? But there is the naivete, right? And also, like, because I haven't been breached yet, or I haven't specifically faced I've never been a part of like a ransomware attack. So therefore I don't know, and therefore I don't care about it. And so the challenge is on security professionals to articulate why it's important, and in a pragmatic way, how you can handle it. Don't worry. But yeah, they definitely, they only care about it if they pay for it, if they give, the money that's needed to do it correctly. So it's just kind of a constant challenge to raise awareness.
Yeah.
For them, so that they understand that these are things that we absolutely need to implement. But
yeah, it's really hard to get that executive buy-in, right? And it's sadly, it's a lot easier after they've experienced a breach or a ransomware scenario, right? So, but I don't want people to have to go through that, right? Like I've worked a lot of really sophisticated incidents, and I mean, the attackers, they're out there to win as well, right? And if they're financially motivated, that means maybe, let's just throw out like crazy scenario. Like let's say US government says it's now illegal for you to pay anyone who pays a ransom, right? Or you cannot pay the ransoms, right? They just outlaw it in all associated loopholes, right? So ransomware operators, they no longer can get ransomware payments from you. I don't think that's really going to happen, right? But they're financially motivated, man. They're going to figure out another way to monetize their access in your network, right? Today, yeah, it's going to be ransomware because that's the easiest way to win. But tomorrow, even if you somehow solve the ransomware problem, they're still going to figure out a way to monetize you, right? I mean, there's some incredibly smart, I don't know if smart, but yeah, incredibly smart attacking groups out there that come up with schemes that are really cool, right? Like there's a group and all they did was hack orgs which prepared financial statements for other companies. So they would get first mover advantage on all the latest quarterly file reportings. They would know them before they're public. And these guys made millions, right? And they sold the info to stock traders, right? Wow. And they paid millions for it too, right? Yep. Everybody got rich.
They put all those. Yeah, it's so interesting. The options market is so interesting. Yeah, right before.
Oh yeah, you know this market well. Yeah. I mean, so tell me how I do this without noticing.
It's such a funny thing. What was the Oh yeah, someone knew about the Splunk, purchase.
Oh yeah,
right? And you could see like someone went crazy out of the money calls, right? Just tons. They just made millions, right? And second, they had to have known something. So it's I'm not saying that like. Who knows for sure? It's like speculating, but it's so crazy, the sophistication of this operation.
Yeah, I think the Netflix one just went public, right? With the filings where employees, because Netflix is a real open culture, so they have daily active user and other metrics that employees were privy to. So employees were giving that data to other people to trade, right? The financials coming out.
Because they can't trade. They can't trade it. So like, no one will know if this person is associated with me.
Yeah, I think the SEC said they got busted because statistically they just traded too well overall, right? Which, I don't know. Well, sometimes people say stuff and it may or may not be accurate, right? So a lot of times in scenarios you don't want to reveal tradecraft, right? So maybe that's accurate, maybe it's not. But either way, I mean, there's definitely people out there that are figuring out ways to monetize the data. And I don't even think honestly, we have not even got to the tip of the iceberg yet on ways to monetize this data. I've done brainstorming sessions with my peer groups, and there's a lot more ways to which I'm not going to name here, but there's a lot more ways to monetize these accesses than what the attackers are currently doing. And we're just going to see more of that, right? So if the existing stuff gets shut down, which I do think that policymakers are going to do a couple different things, which are going to reduce ransomware, but still it will continue to live on. I mean, they're going to figure out, they're going to evolve as well. So it's always that cat and mouse, right? So,
well, it sounds awesome. I loved what you talked about the pragmatic approaches to implementing CTEM. I love that.
Yeah.
Super awesome. Talking about how we need to be thinking about AI. Okay, next question. Okay, in the Fellowship, who's your favorite character?
Like Lord of the Rings?
That's
Is
right.
that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Like, first off, I got to say, before I answer the question, the Lego Lord of the Rings set that they just dropped, like, amazing. Like, have you seen the Rivendell? Have you seen the details on the tiling of the roof?
Yes, I have.
It's just unbelievable.
Yes.
That is by far the coolest Lego set I've seen in a long time.
Yep.
And, I mean, I like the lion castle too, but that's good. So, you know who I really like, and I'm not like a super Lord of the Rings fan. Is I really like the.
You can just name generally, and we'll help you.
Yeah,
help you.
I like the what's the dwarf's name, right? That's kind of like friends with the river elf type guy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, so Legolas's friend.
Yeah, Legolas's friend.
Oh, I can't think of
the dwarf guy.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's Gimli.
Gimli, there we go. Ah, we got a real fan over in the room. Give him some points.
Russ, 20 points, man.
Yeah. What was the new thing that came out? Oh, Amazon Prime had a series.
Yeah.
And they kind of had some interaction with them.
Lady Galadriel.
And I just thought it was good. Like, I like, you know, it's very relatable the way that they operate, right? Like, I can see a lot of my past interactions, like coming out. Like, he wants to help his friend, but he also wants to like stay loyal to like his family and the community that's built him. But he wants to make a name for himself, right? He doesn't want to just be known as like dad's son or whatever, right? He wants to take some risk. And
you're talking about Isildur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know his name. Let's just be honest. So.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
I really like that aspect of it. And I just like one thing that I really like is just grit. I like people that have grit. Like people that wake up every morning and they stare down and they go, yeah, this isn't going to be easy, but I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it, right? And then whatever comes in my way, I'm going to make it happen. So, and I feel like that's kind of like the dwarven spirit in an essence, right? Yeah. They're like, yeah, there's a whole mountain. Let's bore a hole in it. Yeah, like we got this, right?
Amazing things. Yes.
Yeah. What about yourself? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I would say Aragorn.
Okay.
Just because like that's the obvious. It's probably the easiest. I like Sam. Sam is like runner up.
Okay.
He's got a lot of grit too.
Yeah.
And he's like hell, but just Aragorn is just like, man, when I was little,
classic.
I remember reading the books with my dad, and they called him Strider, and then reading the letter, and like his true name is Aragorn, and I'm like, I used to. This is part of growing up for us. For me and my brother, we played The War in Middle Earth on Apple II GS. I still remember all the songs. I still remember like you just gotta play it out, right? Like, so no, Lord of the Rings is huge for me. It's really important. But yeah, Aragorn. I mean, I'm just gonna go with like the popular answer. You know, he's the best.
What do you go with, Jason?
Man, I like Legolas. I always thought he was cool. I mean, it's been forever since I've seen the show, right? But I always just remember
the way he
Legolas.
mounts a horse.
Yeah.
So fly.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this is off topic, but did you guys see that Turtles movie?
Not yet. Is it good?
It's got a super fly. I really liked it.
Okay, man.
It's really good.
So I know, like, I have committed to memory, so I have that kind of brain, right? Like, where I can remember all of the lyrics from songs. I can remember each line. Ninja Turtles 1 and Ninja Turtles 2 had my whole heart when I was growing up, man. The Secret of the Ooze, and like, I just remember Raphael being so upset that he lost his sai He used profanity to explain it, and I was just like little, and I'm like, oh, am I allowed to say that? And he lost his sight. Oh my gosh, dude, Raphael. And then Splinter just commanded, dude, that's leadership right there. Raphael, let it go. You know, he just.
My oldest daughter, she really likes the Back to the Future movie. And then my youngest daughter, there's quite a span. There's like almost a 10-year span between the two, right? So she was watching it, and they're watching it together. And then the end of number 1, Back to the Future, where like the lightning strikes, and then the doctor is like using profanity, right? And then my youngest, she just starts saying it too, right? And then she runs in the kitchen and starts saying it to mom. I was like, now we can't even watch Back to the Future. Like, you ruined it.
Yeah, I love Back to the Future, man. Like, that is also part of like the Scott lore. And like, we've all watched it, right? Like, oh man, so good. It's so good, man.
Yeah, there's just so many of those classic movies.
Do you have a Plex server? Yeah, I have a Plex server, and so we have a
What's that? Tell me more about it.
Plex? Never mind. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of movies that are great that you'll never hear about. What's a movie that we don't know about it that we need to see? What's the most obscure movie that? Oh man. Never mind. Maybe.
Yeah, that's gonna be a long conversation. So have you seen Port of Shadows?
Nope. Do I need to?
That's awesome.
Okay.
I'll send you a list, man. Like, okay. There's a lot of these weird films that I don't know. I don't want to say they're weird. But I guess they're not like mainstream. Not a lot of them are mainstream. Or like things you would encounter unless you're kind of. So I really love film. Right?
Yeah. Did you see that new one that came out? That new sci-fi? I haven't.
No. Creator. I haven't seen that one yet, but
it's on the list. I want to see it.
Yeah,
it's excellent.
We should go.
Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
You want to go?
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Creator. Let's do it.
Yeah, that one looks cool. I watched Robots on Hulu. Right. I just wrapped that up this morning. That was pretty funny. It's kind of like a rom-com, right? But it's also got like a future element where, spoiler alert for anyone who wants not to be spoiled, maybe skip ahead like 30 seconds or whatever.
This is your warning right now, because it's going to get spoiled now.
Okay, all right. So there's a guy, and he makes a robot that looks exactly like himself, right? Okay. And so then he sends that robot out in the real world to basically get him dates. Right? That's his master plan is I built a robot that looks just like me and he will go get me dates. Right? But on one of these outings to get a date, he falls for this girl, right? The robot does. Oh. But then it turns out that girl is the exact same thing, is also a robot, which another girl sends out and built to scam guys into buying her like Prada bags, which she goes and like sells at the pawn store or whatever to pay rent. So like it's like total like catfish scenario. And the robots realize both of their like human masters are like not good, and they're like they just peace out, right? And the rest of the movie is like those two humans trying to get their robots back. Because this is like illegal, right? You can't build a robot that looks exactly like you and have him impersonate you.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's really funny. It's like a funny rom-com, but also futuristic. I really enjoyed it. And I know, I want to warn you though, I'm universally known for loving horrible movies. Like Fast and Furious franchise. Or anything that's like, Michael Bay related, right? Yeah. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah. Like
so I just
like you're okay with them.
Yeah. So I just want to go. Yeah. Like for me, there's two categories that film falls into, right? So the first and foremost category is, dude, I've had a long day. My mind is fried. I just need like an hour or two of not thinking.
Yeah.
And that's when it's Fast and Furious time, man. Like I just want to see explosions. And
dude, you just need junk food, man.
Yeah.
You just need it. Dude, you remind me of the robots. You got to check this out. So did you ever see Important Things by Dimitri Martin?
Oh, yes. I love Dimitri. He's so good.
He's so good.
I love his stand-up where he does the drawings.
He's amazing. I I love Dimitri Martin. So there's like a season 2 episode where he like hires people to get him dates, like to make him.
Oh really? I gotta watch that. I gotta watch
Send it
that.
to you, man. It's so good. But you reminded me of that with the robots. But
Yeah, his stand-up comedy is amazing,
level.
man. Just inspirational.
so hilarious, man. Oh man, maybe we could get Dimitri Martin on the podcast
Let's do it.
Dude,
one day.
Come on, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Dream big. You never know. You never know what's gonna happen.
You never know. Hey,
Dimitri Martin might be hearing this. He might say to himself, I like skiing. I like snowboarding. I bet I could get these guys to fly me out there and expense a skiing trip.
That's
you know?
right. And probably costs like $100,000 to do it, or maybe even
No big deal. Worth it.
$250,000. Yeah, that would
Dream big. Dream big.
Dream big.
So I know the VC market's a little down right now.
But I don't believe it's gonna rebound.
What are you?
And that senseless spending is gonna come back.
Yes. What are you going to use this $50 million for, Kenny? What in our next pitch?
Yes.
It's going to be like, well, at least $1 million. It's going to be trying to get Dimitri Martin on the Paramify podcast.
What is the thing with like brands now have like their page where they like pay Chris Pratt or whoever?
Yeah.
Like, what do they call it?
Ambassadors, right? Like you need to get like Dimitri Martin as an ambassador of the brand.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yeah. In fact, yeah. I mean, yeah.
What is Paramify's slogan? That's what I gotta know.
Enable
the slogan?
trust.
What?
Enable trust.
Yeah, there's also Simplify with Paramify.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah.
Could you just imagine Dimitri backing you into that by like a drawing? Right?
We could probably have AI do it, you know, just, it might be okay. Right?
It wouldn't be the same.
No, it wouldn't be the same. No.
It's okay.
But we heart Dimitri Martin.
We love you.
We love you, man. Love you. Big fans. And so
Give Dimitri a point. We need to give it to
Yeah, man, he gets like 50 points. That's just.
So we're hearing the winner of the podcast, Dimitri Martin, and he was not even present for the podcast. I love it. I love it.
It's only right.
It's only right, man.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any parting words for your homies in the cyberspace? Any shouts we need to give?
Yeah. I just want to say I'm really grateful for everything that people have done for me over the years, right? Whether it was like I was that nerdy high school kid that was like hanging out behind a pizza shop trying to like pick your mind on how to get onto some BBS system, all the way to, you know, our first clients that took a risk and used us for the pen testing services and helped us keep growing, all the way to clients today that, you know, give us the time at UltraViolet to show them all the cool innovations that we've been working on. And, you know, they can see the future vision that we're pushing towards, and they want to get on board, right? They want to, you know, kind of go on this adventure with us. And I'm really grateful, right? I'm grateful for, you know, everything that I have, and also just really the people that I've been able to meet along the way. I think the one thing that, you know, my dad told me, I was going on a trip and for several years, and he told me, it's like, the biggest thing you want to do, and this is back before there was like smart cameras. He just gave me one of those like old school cameras. He's like, the biggest thing you want to do is make sure every picture you take has a person in it. He's like, because, you know, places are great, but the memories attached to those people and the experience that you have, those are going to stay with you your whole life, right? And I've lived by that since that day to today. I've lived my life that way, right? Like whenever there's a chance to like have a good positive experience with someone, I've tried to do my best to take advantage of that opportunity and you know, just overall try to live a life that's worth living. And that probably sounds
amazing,
weird, but
I love it. Not weird. It's so awesome. It's so true.
10,000 points.
Yeah.
We all know Dimitri's the winner. Come on.
That's true.
I'll take your sympathy points.
Yeah, just give the sympathy points. That's all right, man. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing the sentiment, the jokes, and also just the insight into where we're going in cyber in the future. It's exciting. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's really hard, but it's awesome.
yeah.
And I love it. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Keaton.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me, Kenny. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Ciao.